Welcome to the ATA Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Baird. Each month on the podcast, we bring you news and insights from the American Translators Association. We look at what's happening at ATA, explore the benefits of membership, and discuss the translation and interpreting professions. You know, the T&I industry is changing rapidly. We hope this podcast will help you keep up with it. ATA was founded over 60 years ago to advance the translation and interpreting professions and foster the professional development of individual translators and interpreters. We have nearly 10,000 members in some 100 countries. If you'd like to know more about ATA, we'll have some information for you at the end of the show. You'll also find links in the notes. All right, let's start off with a few quick announcements.
Hey ATA members, listen up. You can now take the ATA certification exam online. That's right, if an in-person exam is not available in your area, you now have the option to take it from home on your computer. Demand for the online exam is very high, and all currently scheduled exam sittings are completely booked, but more dates will be opening up soon. Registrations are accepted on a first-come, first-served basis, so don't wait to sign up. Several in-person exams are also now on the schedule, with more on the way. Check ATA's website regularly for details and new exam dates. And remember, you must be an ATA member to register for an exam. Also, ATA just announced its latest compensation survey. This compensation survey is designed to compile compensation information specifically for translation and interpreting, and gives you comparative data to help make crucial business decisions. ATA members, check your inbox for a link to the survey site and your user ID and password. If you're not an ATA member, go to ATA's website for details and a link to the survey. The more people participate, the better our data will be. Help us help you understand the translation and interpreting market better. Please complete the survey by July 16th. And finally, if you're looking for professional development opportunities, look no further. ATA's webinar series is shifting into high gear. We have lined up some 26 webinars between now and the end of the year. Webinars are held live, but if you've registered, you also get on-demand access to watch or review at any time. ATA members have quick and easy access to all purchased webinars in their member center. And remember that ATA members get a 25% discount, as well as one free webinar every month and free access to all Back to Business Basics webinars. Go to the Events tab on ATA's website for more details.
Joining me now are Ted Wozniak and Madalena Sánchez Zampaulo. Ted is the current president of the American Translators Association. He is a full-time ATA certified German to English translator specializing in finance and accounting. Ted has previously served as an ATA director, treasurer, and chair of the Ethics Committee and the Advocacy Committee. Madalena is currently serving as ATA president-elect, ATA 62 conference organizer, and chair of the association's Governance and Communications Committee. She is an ATA certified translator and owner of Accessible Translation Solutions, a boutique translation agency based in Southern California. She's also a consultant for the University of Louisville Graduate Certificate in Translation. Ted and Madalena, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
It's great to have you back. And we're here, of course, for our annual halftime show. And we've got a lot on the agenda today. But I'm going to kind of switch it up a little to start off with. Madalena, you and Ted just got back from Minneapolis, I believe, where you did a site visit for the upcoming annual conference. And Madalena, you are the conference organizer. So I thought we'd start by having you tell our listeners how that visit went and what awaits us in the Twin Cities this year.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. It was, first of all, great to be back in person and a little bit strange to take your first trip. You know, everybody who's taken their first trip by now knows that. But yeah, it was great. It was wonderful. Ted and I met at the conference hotel this month with a couple of headquarters staff members and the contacts that we partner with for the conference. So, you know, people like the audiovisual company we work with, the people who set up the stage and everything like that. And then also their meeting and events manager at the hotel, the conference hotel. So everything went smoothly. It was really nice, like I said, to be back in person again. These meetings are best done in person, you know, to be able to see the whole space and figure out where everything's going to go. And but we also discussed what other groups have been doing on site for conferences like ours will be this year, hybrid conferences during the pandemic. So, our conference this year being hybrid, we will have people presenting in person, and we will be streaming and recording those sessions. So, what that looks like and how that's all going to work. And what's involved in managing both the in-person portion and the virtual conference simultaneously, because it's essentially like two conferences, and also we talked about things like logistics and, helping our virtual attendees enjoy the sessions as much as possible as well. We talked about current COVID protocols and safety and security at the hotel and several other things. So it was a very productive meeting. I'm really excited that we're going to be in person again this year. When I tell Ted, when I signed up for this is not what I expected, right? Last year, a virtual conference, and this year hybrid. But two new models to for our association. I think it's a good thing in the end that we're able to be flexible like that. So we have plenty of work still to do, but things are running smoothly, and registration for the conference is scheduled to open in July, and there are a lot of more details to come.
Right on. I know I'm looking forward to it, and I will definitely be there in person. Ted, what are you looking forward to in October?
Yeah, I'm also probably like everybody, I'm looking forward to meeting people in person again and getting out. I was able to get out to a couple of restaurants while I was there. It was just 2 nights, but the area where the hotel is, there's lots of dining options right there, and most of them were already open without restrictions. So a couple of restaurants were still closed, but the folks on the scene there assured us that by the time October rolls around, everything will be open, and they expect everything to be pretty much back to normal by then. So I've been doing some research. I'm a big fan of diners, drive-ins, and dives, and there's a few restaurants in Minneapolis that have been on Triple D.
That's true.
There's only one that's really close to the hotel, but so I'll take an Uber and do a little exploring. And also, somewhat bittersweet. I got to say, though, I'm looking forward to wrapping up my term as COVID president and handing the baton over to Madalena.
Yeah. This is going to be your last conference, and in fact,
as president, it's not my last conference.
Yes, of course. You beat me to that. Last conference as president, and this will be actually your last appearance on the podcast as president. So we'll have to celebrate that later in the show. All right, now this is a halftime show, so let's look back on the first half of the year. And I have to tell you, it seems like every time I turn around, ATA is offering something new or something has changed. And that was no different in the first half of 2021. There seems to be a lot going on. Ted, can you give us a little overview about what's been going on in the last 6 months?
Sure. Basically, this year so far, it's basically been a continuation of what we started in 2020. Admittedly, due to the COVID pandemic, we've had to expand a lot of our remote offerings. And as I think I said in my column recently, we've taken that COVID lemonade or lemons, and we've made lemonade out of it. So all the committees, the membership committee, the PD committee, business practice committee, they've really stepped up and responded to this call on getting things online, PD offerings. The membership committee has got expanding their outreach and new member orientation sessions. I even heard that we've had members, some that have been not new members, and they've attended them and learned some things. They've been very well received. We recently just published our new ebook, the ATA Guide to Starting Out as a Translator, which is obviously intended for folks that are thinking about any profession, and that's getting out there to T&I programs across the country. It's available on the ALC Bridge platform, and of course on our website. The Business Practice Committee's been doing a lot of work with savvy newcomer folks. The mentoring program's been running well. They've got a brand new mastermind program, which is a level up from the mentoring. So, and of course, the free monthly webinars that we started to help folks that have been affected economically. One every month. If you took every one, not everybody's going to be interested in every single one, but if you did attend all 12, that's $540 worth of free training. It's there. Yeah. So I just got to say, all the committees have really stepped up to the plate during this, not just the last 6 months, the last year and a half. And, and they're going to continue. This is, just because things get back to quote unquote normal, we're going to continue this. So, I look forward to seeing this rest of this year and beyond.
Madalena, Ted just mentioned, professional development and some of the offerings that ATA has. I'd like to talk about that more in a moment. But first, I think one of the key benefits of ATA for me is having access to a professional network. And, Ted just mentioned COVID and what a lot of the committees have been doing. And, this networking has just been more difficult this past year for obvious reasons. So what has ATA been doing to help keep members connected this year?
Well, it's interesting, Matt. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day and I thought, we were already connected in many ways before, but I feel like now even more than ever, we're seeing people networking because we have the virtual option now, which is not everybody's favorite, but it's been working well. And a lot of the groups are taking advantage of that. So like the ATA Business Practices Education Committee hosted a virtual brainstorm networking event. The second one will be on June 29th, which I think is about the same time that this podcast is going to air. Several divisions have also been having virtual coffee breaks or happy hours and those types of networking opportunities, like the Chinese language division. They did something interesting where they did like a meet and greet with a speaker after a webinar. The French language division has regular meetups and some are on like specific topics. For example, on June 15th, they had a speaker talk about the importance of ergonomics for translators. And a previous meetup in May was organized and the topic of discussion was about working post-pandemic with like a look to the future. The audiovisual division has regular meetups and happy hours, and they just had one on June 26th, which is actually open to everyone. So a lot of the divisions are hosting these types of events, but also some are hosting certification practice groups. So these may not sound like networking opportunities, but inevitably you will network with colleagues when you're studying for the exam together. And then there's lots of, great networking opportunities in the works, and there's always more, like you said, popping up.
Yeah, and Matt, if I may add, this since you're in Germany, my home division, the German language division, have for some time now, even before pre-pandemic, they have a subgroup for members living in Europe, and they've gotten together on Zoom several times since haven't been able to meet in person.
Yeah. You said it. We get together once a year for a full weekend workshop, and we haven't been able to do that since the pandemic began. And our organizer has organized some coffee hours, and that's kept us connected, which is really nice. So it's really great to see the resilience that our association has and how we've adapted to the circumstances and really kept in touch with each other, because so many of us work remotely, we work from our homes, and we need to have that social interaction.
Exactly.
Madalena, I'd like to stick with you for a moment and now talk about continuing professional development. And because that is a big part of ATA's offering and a big benefit of membership. And there's also, Ted just mentioned so many things. There's really so much going on. I can't keep up with it. Tell us what's going on in the CPD world.
Yeah. Well, that's why we do this every year, right, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the PD offering is booming, and more than ever, I think. They have put together, the Professional Development Committee has put together lots of on-demand webinars. So there's been nearly 20 webinars already this year, and we're just now in June. So the topics have been ranging from, everything from remote interpreting to subtitling and closed captioning, post-editing, working with law firms, back translation and localization, and several other topics. They also have a new Back to Business Basics series that they started, and I think that's been actually really popular among members. It's free to members, and they're doing, I think, one a month right now. They have speakers lined up, I think, through the end of the year for this as well. And then, of course, we have our free webinar each month for members, and you can find that in news briefs each month. The new one is mentioned, and you just basically log in with your member login, and you can access the free webinar for the month. They recently introduced something called a double header, where it's basically 2 webinars within the same subject area, and they're scheduled on the same day with a short break in between. And then people can purchase them individually or buy both of them with for a discount. So apparently, from what I've heard, this format's been very popular. I can see why. I think it's a nice addition to our PD offerings. And this year, they've also been working on some hands-on virtual workshops. So they had a consecutive note-taking skills workshop for interpreters in May, which sold out just within a few days, I think. And now they have a wait list. So they're working on repeating that workshop in the fall for people who would still like to attend. They did a transcreation and multilingual copywriting workshop in early June, so this month, and they sold out really quickly as well. And that was a hit among attendees as well. So there's a new feature, by the way, I wanted to mention this on the website, where members can now log into their member profile, scroll down to the ATA education section, and they can watch all the webinars that they've purchased. So these webinars never expire. You don't need to get a link by email, and you can access them from your profile at any time. And now you can even print out your attendance certificate. So that's something new as well. But looking ahead, they have a lot more to come. The PD calendar is full through the rest of 2021, and they're actually now scheduling events for 2022. They have more of their Back to Business Basics series coming up with new speakers, like I mentioned, 16 new webinars coming up in the second half of 2021, in addition to those free Back to Business Basics webinars. And they're working on expanding their virtual workshop offerings and looking ahead to potentially offering some online courses soon. So maybe we'll hear something about that later. But I did want to mention, if you want to hear things about professional development, anybody, go back to episode 54, where Matt interviewed Veronica de Michelis about this, because there's a lot of content there about what they've been working on.
Yeah, you beat me to it, actually. I wanted to mention that as well. And
Yeah.
I have to say, I love the new function on the website. I recently signed up for a webinar, and then I wasn't able to attend. I'm in Germany.
Right.
The time zone doesn't always work. Now, I was able to go back and watch it right there on demand. And I think it's a really cool system. It's very, very convenient. So, wow, a lot going on and a lot in store for professional development. Really great to hear. Ted, in the first half of 2021, one of the highlights, call it a major milestone, was the new website. ATA's new website went online. It's okay, new website doesn't sound extremely exciting, but as I just said, it was a real milestone for the association. Tell us why.
Well, for one thing, it's just the scope of the project. Even we didn't realize how large our website was until we actually started drilling down. And there were, literally, I don't use the word literally very often, but there were literally thousands and thousands of pages of web content, some of which had been lost and forgotten. Something got updated and then their link got, and so they were like the orphan pages that nobody had even seen in years. So, they were discovered, and all of that content had to be looked at and updated, or decisions made. Is this still up to date? Would you keep it? How, where does it go? And of course, the part of it was reorganizing the whole website and, changing the functionalities. We did have a major speed bump because the first service provider we hired to do all this It just bad luck on our part, but as it turned out, apparently they were sitting on a very expensive piece of real estate, and they got an offer. The owner got an offer to sell that real estate, and I guess that was enough for her to retire. So she took that money and just shut down her business basically overnight, halfway through our project. So can imagine what if you did that to one of your clients, that you're halfway through a major translation project and you just say, I'm retiring, see you later.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we were. So halfway through this massive project, and we had to find a new service provider. Luckily, we were able to find one, and it did take us, it added like another 6 months to that, but it was a huge project that, people may not realize, but even under normal this takes like a year from start to finish, from the idea is, okay, we're going to do it before you actually go live. And it involved hundreds of volunteers, every committee, every division, everybody there was again, thousands and thousands of pages of content that had to be reviewed, a lot of it updated. And then of course with the new design and refreshing it. So it was huge. But the ad hoc website committee, had to oversee all this. And their mandate, lasted longer than they expected it, but they did a great job. Like I said, all the division admins, the committee folks that work on the committees that actually had to do all the grunt work, as well as headquarters staff. Teresa is our main, but everybody in headquarters was involved to some extent or another. Mary looking at member stuff, and Karen looking at all the certifications material. So and in the end, I think it's great because it's just so much more organized. It just seems to make more sense. Obviously, it's got a fresh, newer look. Things change in the online world rapidly. Color schemes and things, they get outdated rapidly. So we're modern. We're good for, I don't know, I hope for, maybe five years. I'll have to do it again.
Yeah.
But, we learned a lot, though, from the process, and we've documented the whole process. So when we do it again, the next website committee will have a much easier job. Personally, one of the things, the great improvement, I think, in addition to this, your own personal page, your PD all being there on your member page, is the search functions. I used to be so frustrated when I put in a search term on the old website, and all this stuff came up that had nothing to do with what I was searching for. And now search actually works well.
Yeah.
So, I'm just thrilled that it's finally up and running. And we no longer have an ad hoc website committee. They issued their final report and they have disbanded. So,
right on. Well, I have been very impressed with it. And I have to say, it's made my life as podcast host easier too, because I use the website a lot when I'm searching and researching content for the podcast. And, I got to know the old website pretty well because of the fact that I was on it so much. But it's just been a welcome change that has made my life a lot easier. So now, Madalena, I'd like to turn to another sort of digital development, and that is the online certification exam. Now, things have really progressed, it seems, in the last 6 months. And at your last board meeting in April, I read that the certification committee had reported that they were getting ready to begin remote testing. Where are we at today?
Yeah, so from April to June, they've done quite a bit. They were working on this for months before as well, but they were looking at various vendors and such. So yes, by April, they were telling us, the board, that they would be launching soon in the summer. They have stayed on schedule thanks to Certification Committee Chair Michelle Hansen and Deputy Chair Larry Boguslaw for all their hard work and their committee's work, everything that they've done to launch our online testing program. where members can now take the certification exam remotely. So this is for me one of the most exciting things that's happened this year. They have been training proctors for the exams, and they've rolled out a soft launch now in June. They're going to continue to monitor how the remote exam testing option is going, and they'll continue to make the necessary improvements that are needed along the way. So I think by the time this podcast airs, they will have had at least 2 or 3 sittings. From what I've heard, they're doing very well. They're selling out. And then there are upcoming exams already scheduled for the next several months. Some of those are selling out fast too. And there are some in-person exams now that are popping up on the schedule. If you go to the ATA website and search under certification exam, you'll find the list of exam sittings, both remote and in person. And we will have 2 in-person sittings at the annual conference in Minneapolis this year too.
Awesome. Yeah, this is a topic we've actually covered a couple times on the podcast over the years. I know that the association has been, driving in this direction for quite a while, and it's really, really, just awesome to see it coming to fruition and going live, so to speak. Last month on the podcast, we talked about ATA's advocacy efforts, and it's a big part of what the association does. My guest was your fellow board member, Lorena Ortiz Schneider, and she's the current chair of the advocacy committee. And we covered it all. So anybody who's interested in what ATA is doing in the advocacy realm, definitely go and check out episode 58. Lorena gives us the full scoop. But we can't, this wouldn't be a halftime show if we didn't cover this topic briefly. So Ted, you're involved in ATA's advocacy efforts, and you are a member of the committee. You were a former chair of the committee. Is there anything in particular that happened the last 6 months that you'd like to highlight for us today?
Sure. Thanks, Matt. Luckily, the last 6 months have been maybe we'll say a little less hectic in terms of advocacy work required than 2019 was. And before that, we had AB5 and the start of the pandemic. But we continued, working on pandemic related issues. We got another letter out to the Center for Disease Control, again, about getting mostly interpreters, who are trying, some are still had to do in person, about getting them vaccinated as the vaccines rolled out at the beginning of this year, around March or so. And so that had some various success and member-driven efforts at the state level, and whoever's in control of the vaccine distribution. So that was a pretty important one for this year, for 2021. The PRO Act is passed the House and is in the Senate. There hasn't been a lot of movement on that, and it doesn't look like that's probably going to go anywhere this year. Although, if they move forward on getting rid of the filibuster in relation to some of the infrastructure bill and some of the other things that the Senate is working on right now, if they get rid of the filibuster, then the PRO Act could easily come up again. But if the filibuster is not done away with, the PRO Act is probably dead for this session. So it's not quite so urgent that we work on that. More at a local level, we recently sent a letter to the administrative office of the Pennsylvania courts, who have proposed some changes to the compensation structure for court interpreters, reducing the minimum hours, and they wanted to mandate an unpaid 45-minute break and some other things, which just, were not in the best interest, not only of our interpreter members, but also the populations, limited English populations that they serve in the court. So we sent out a very strongly worded letter to the administrative office. Hopefully we get some support there, and they'll take a look at that. And we're also continuing to monitor things at other state levels. There's lots of bills going on, not directly related to certification at various states, some of which could have runoff effects on our certification program. Nothing concrete right now, but we'll be keeping an eye on a lot of them, and we'll be ready to react if and when that becomes necessary. So there's always a lot going on in advocacy. But like I said, luckily, at least the last 6 months, not quite so urgent as 2020 was.
Madalena, let's turn to another form of advocacy. And ATA released a draft position paper on remote interpreting. It was open for comments from members until June 17th, and it will be released to the public soon. Why is ATA taking up this issue?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So first, last year's pandemic lockdown created a huge demand for remote interpreting that our industry was not entirely ready for. In addition to this, the general public is not very well informed about the skills and the difficulties involved in providing interpreting services, even in person, right? But especially remotely, because everybody had to move everything to a remote option if possible. So several members took the opportunity to help ATA establish a baseline understanding for the use of remote interpreting. They worked on this paper. They submitted a couple of iterations to the board, and then it went to members for comment. And you're right, the comment period ended on June 17th. So thanks to everybody who sent in comments. We got several comments back, most of them, very positive in the sense of like, thank you for doing this, we need this. And so that was really nice to see. And so the authors of the papers will now use the comments that we received to make any final revisions before submitting the final version of the paper to the board for the board's review and propose the release of the paper to the public.
Ted, at the April board meeting, you discussed ATA Treasurer John Milan's report on the first half of ATA's fiscal year, which in ATA has a fiscal year from July 1st to June 30th every year. So the first half of ATA's fiscal year was July 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. Now, as we're recording this, we're just coming to the end of ATA's full fiscal year. So I assume the numbers for the second half are not out yet. But what can you tell us about ATA's finances?
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, the numbers aren't final yet. Like everything else, there's been some slowdown in getting things done because of the pandemic. So we don't have the auditors aren't done with their audit just yet. But yeah, I have to say that finances are a bit of a concern for me. Not so much, in the near short term, this year or even next year per se, but a little bit looking at a little bit longer term. For two reasons. First, there's historically been, at least certainly the whole time I've been on the board, a very strong positive relationship between the financial success of the annual conference and our overall financial success each fiscal year. And then the second reason is our declining membership numbers. With respect to the conference, as a general rule, the bottom line of the conference, if that makes a profit or a loss, is very closely parallels our overall profit or loss for the whole year. And we project that this year's conference is likely to come in at a significant loss because of the huge increase in the audiovisual and tech support costs that we're going to incur from this hybrid conference. Because basically it's two conferences, one physical in person and then a separate hybrid virtual conference. So the AV costs are more than double what they would normally be. And we just know that we couldn't possibly raise the price of the conference to cover that. So we're going to take a loss. We know that, but we're going to learn about going forward. One thing at our meeting, we did talk about other associations that have been doing hybrid models. Again, it's brand new. We're all learning. And we were told that we are definitely unique in that we are offering our virtual attendees 100% of the educational content that the in-person attendees will also have. Apparently, most other professional associations that are doing hybrids are offering only a small percentage to the virtual attendees, which obviously cuts down on their AV costs. So we'll have to take a look at that. But again, the conference is going to lose money this year. So that we're probably going to lose money overall this year. Our projections for the conference for the next couple of years also show losses. And that's somewhat troubling. Several years ago, the board passed a policy that the annual conference should at least break even over time. So basically, which means if we lose money on it 1 year, hopefully the next year it should make us profit, so that again, over the course of 3 to 5 years, it at least breaks even. Hopefully it'd be nice if it made some profit, so that it's not subsidized by membership dues. Because the board feels that, the people that benefited from the conference are the conference attendees. And obviously, out of there are 8,000 plus 8,500 individual members, only a small percentage of them actually come to the conference. So their membership dues shouldn't pay for the conference. More concerning for me from the financial aspect long term is our steady decline in individual membership, which means decline in dues revenue as well. I've looked at the number individual membership was increasing from numbers that I have going back to 2006 up through 2010, when we peaked at 9,496 individual members. And since 2010, so the last 10 years, my numbers go through 2020. Obviously, we're not done with 2021 yet. Might have gone up and down from year to year, but overall, there's been an overall declining trend. And we closed out 2020 at just 8,058 individual members. So, that's this decline I find troubling. I do note on the more positive side that ATA has an above average retention ratio that hovers around 82 to 84%, which means of all our members, 82 to 84% of them do renew when it comes time, which is well above average for a professional association. But what it means is that we're not making up for the natural loss. People do retire, people change professions, and we're not getting, enough newer, younger members. So, and what that affects is also, this is a profession that we keep being told is, growing. There's a lot more demand for T&I over the last decade. And while we don't have good hard numbers on how many individual professionals there are in the United States, just the common sense tells us that what I call our coverage ratio, the percentage of professional practitioners of translation and interpreting, out of that total number in the United States, what percentage are ATA members? That number is declining. So I find that concerning over the long run. And that's something that, membership committee is aware of it, the board's aware of it. We'll have to keep working on that going forward.
So how is the board then approaching this trend, or how has it been approaching this trend?
Well, obviously, we've talked to the membership committee about it, and again, as you've seen, just in the last year, they've really stepped up their efforts. So far, a lot of it's been on retention. The new member orientation, I think, is going to be very positive in terms of even making our retention ratio even higher than it is. So we're working on that. Obviously, in addition with, the professional development, they've also, again, we're increased our professional development offerings. So increasing the amount of benefits we get, but also our messaging, getting the message out to members about, this is the value you get from being an ATA member. And then the next step in this, and we're in progress, this is going to be a long-term process, is again, recruitment efforts, getting the word out to the younger professionals, the new entrants into the T&I profession. And part of that is getting the word out to them where they are. Again, we have a whole new generation on social media, TikTok and Instagram, and, things that I would never even think of as a communications channel for, but they are. So we've got younger folks on the membership committee. We're actually in talks, thinking about, the board is thinking about, and we're going to talk about professionalizing some of our membership communications. Maybe hiring professional social media, whatever name they have, but they're, have one person to do all of our tweets and Facebook postings and everything. It's a possibility. So again, we're just looking at, bringing ATA well into the 21st century and getting the word out to potential members. So, I would just say we've done a lot, the membership committee and PD committee as well. They've been spreading the seed about some benefits of membership, but it's going to take a long time before those seeds ripen and yield the good harvest year after year.
Yeah, I agree. And Matt, we've also done a few things to try to help current members as well. In 2020, a lot of people saw a decline in their business due to the pandemic. So the board approved installment payments for members. So when they pay their dues, they have the option to either pay in full or pay in 2 installments. And I know that helped a good number of members. So that was something we tried to do. And also, like Ted said, the benefits in general that we've been trying to increase the benefits that we have, but also improve the quality of them. So like you said, the PD committee, the professional development committee, has really stepped it up this year. And we've been hearing great feedback from members about all of the professional development offerings. And of course, advocacy. I think that's a huge reason that many members join ATAs, that they want an association that will advocate for them. So the advocacy committee has also stepped up. And so I know there will be more to come, but as Ted said, it is a long-term process. So we'll just have to continue to work on this.
And I have another question that in regard to membership. Ted, in the January-February issue of the ATA Chronicle, you wrote about our current membership classes. And you actually described it as a problem and sort of said that there's going to be an upcoming, you mentioned an upcoming report from the Governments and Communications Committee. And I know that in April, the board discussed potential changes to the association's membership structure. Can you bring us up to speed on this issue?
Sure, Matt. Thanks. First, I will say that again, this is actually something that the board has been discussing for at least 2 years.
Yeah, at
so
least.
it's not just, this came up in April. But the issue, again, as I said it, if for those who didn't read my column, is the basic issue is our current membership, our composition of our membership, again, basically active membership versus association membership. I'm focusing solely on individual memberships. The vast majority of our folks no longer really reflects what the intent was 62 years ago when these membership class, well, they've changed a little bit, but it's still basically the same as 60 years ago when the association was formed. The idea, at least from reading old bylaws and again, as I wasn't around, but the idea of what our current active membership class was supposed to be every individual who was a professional practitioner. So if you make your living as an individual, translator or an individual interpreter, you're supposed to be an active member. And the associate class was intended for people who were merely interested in the profession. They just wanted to support ATA for whatever reason, but they're not practicing translators or interpreters. Well, that's just simply not reflected in our reality anymore. The vast majority of our associate members are indeed professional practitioners. And so as far as their work goes, what they do, there is no difference between them and our active members, except within the association. If you're an associate member, you don't get to vote, so you have no say in our governance. And again, I personally think that's a problem, that we have all these practitioners that we're supposed to represent, but they have no say in governance. So for actually a couple of years now, we've been discussing potential changes to the membership classes to basically refunnel everybody. Let's get all of our professional practitioners into one membership class. And everybody who's not a practitioner, if you're just interested, or you don't make the bulk of your living from T&I, then there's another class for you. And there's some other differences. I'll let Madalena go into a little bit more of the details of what that might look like. Should it go forward? Should the board approve, putting out, because obviously this would involve bylaws amendments and be a huge change for the association. But that's the issue as I saw it. And I hope folks agree with you that that's kind of an issue. Again, 80% of our members don't have a vote.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And the GCC has been working on this for quite some time, and even the GCC before, the one that I've been chairing. So
and the one that was me and the one before me.
Okay, so it's been definitely more than 2 years. We've been talking about this since I've been on the board, at least, which is at least 6-7 years now. So it's not a new issue at all. And really, Matt, the idea is to be able to give more members more rights and benefits, and to be able to involve more people who are already involved in many ways. And so, yes, it will be a big bylaws change should it pass, but we are working right now on showing the members what this structure will look like. We actually have a GCC meeting today at the time we're recording this, and we will be working on a little bit of an explanation that goes with the new structure. So watch for that. It'll be open for member comment period soon.
Right on. It sounds like the right thing to do to me. I have to say, it's bringing more people into the right boat. So so I applaud your efforts and wish you luck as you guys continue to discuss and move forward with that issue. The board approved the appointment of members to 2 ad hoc committees earlier this year. And I thought we'd end you guys telling us what these new ad hoc committees are going to be doing. What projects are they going to be working on?
The first is the ad hoc National Registry of Individual Translators and Interpreters Committee. What they're looking at is basically pretty simple. And it's in response to what we saw happening in California when we were trying to get AB5 fixed. And so this is purely a worker classification in response to worker classification issues, because what we saw in several of the proposed legislative amendments to AB5 was that the legislators like they like this register. They wanted to see a register, or so there was something, a list of who's a professional translator and interpreter. And I think it obviously came out of the Register of Interpreters for the Deaf, RID. So the idea here is really quite simple. It's simply to have a database of individual practitioners, sole proprietors, who consider themselves to be independent contractors who offer professional translating and interpreting services. Is quite different. That is the ad hoc basic credential committee. And again, this is another topic that has been discussed on and off for years at ATA. Our current certification program is, we self-define our certification as a mid-career certification. It's a qualification. By its very nature, however, it is extremely limited. It's limited by the languages that we can offer, because it's a mid-career. It's at a level that presumably precludes automatically beginners, newcomers to the profession. So there's simply a lot of people who never be able to be ATA certified under our current system. And the question is there some way, language neutral if possible, is there something we can do to take a newcomer to the profession who's out there working as a professional and somehow measure their qualifications and give them some sort of basic credential. Obviously, this is a very tough nut to crack. And I don't expect any solution to come. There's going to be a lot of debate. I don't expect an answer to this, in 3 to 6 months. This committee could last, for quite a while. And it's even possible this may not be something that they may not be able to come to an agreement. So they may, be in existence for 9 months or a year and come back and say, we just can't agree on a solution that's good for everybody. But at least, even if that's the case, at least we'll have looked at it. So
Yeah.
that's what those two are working at.
Yeah, and Matt, to clarify, they're both working on a recommendation for the board. They're not necessarily setting up any kind of basic credential. Their mandate is to make a recommendation, like Ted said.
That's generally the case with these ad hoc committees. It's sort of projects looking forward. What can we do? Yeah. No, but sounds very fascinating. The basic credential, a real fascinating topic, and I'll be interested to see what comes out of that debate. So thank you for sharing those new projects. Now, Ted and Madalena, this is your last podcast together as president and president-elect. You've both come on the show several times together, and Ted, of course, you were have been on before. Madalena came on board as president-elect, but Madalena, you've been on several times as a committee chair, several of your committee chairs. So I just like to take this moment to thank both of you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules, because I know you're both working translators, business owners, and you've got basically a second full-time job as president and president-elect of ATA. So, but I really appreciate it, and I'm sure our listeners do too, that you come on the show and we sort of hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. But let's end this halftime show in sort of halftime show fashion with some predictions for going forward. I want to give you both the mic now and just share with us how you think the next half of the year is going to go, and sort of your thoughts for the future.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah. Well, looking ahead, we still have quite a bit coming up this year. I mean, yesterday I was saying I can't believe it's already the end of June, but we still have quite a bit to go. A lot of the items we've already mentioned here today about what's coming up, but a couple of other pieces that we didn't talk about, which I'm sure you will get into later this year, are International Translation Day in September. The PR committee is working on something special for that, as they do now every year. And also we have an election coming up in October at the annual conference. So we'll be hearing from our candidates soon, and we just always have new things coming up. So I would just suggest to everybody listening to keep watching your news briefs, listening to the podcast, and getting involved in your divisions so that you can hear about all the new offerings and opportunities in store.
Thanks, Madalena. So you already mentioned the ITD and the elections. So I'm just going to focus in on the conference, and I am going to predict that in-person attendance at ATA 62 is going to be higher than projected, because lots more people are going to want to be there in person than we currently thought, or we thought 3 months ago. So I'm going to open up the betting pool, and I'm going to say 1,400 people in Minneapolis.
Wow.
And I'd also like to just forecast a little bit further out than just to the end of the year by predicting that Madalena is going to be one of the best presidents ATA has ever had, keeping the energy level high at both the board and committees, because that's what she does. She's great at that. And she'll be taking steps to improve ATA's long-term outlook with respect to finance, membership, advocacy, and ATA brand name recognition, both within and outside the profession.
Thanks, Ted. Well, Matt, then I will actually wrap that up and say that I would just want to thank Ted for all the work that he's done as president the past year and a half. And I don't know too many people who would have taken on so many major issues all at once and still kept their cool in their head about them. He really stepped up, and it's been a pleasure to be his second in command, so to speak. So I think we've made a good team during what's been a really difficult time for everybody. And I just want to make sure to publicly thank him, but I will do that again in Minneapolis because he's not done yet.
Thank you, Madalena. Yeah, we have made a good team.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much. I look forward to seeing you both in Minneapolis, and thank you so very much for joining me today.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
All right, that's a wrap. I'd like to thank everyone who helped produce the show today. Derek Platts mixed and edited the audio. Ben Carl is the voice behind the announcements, and Mary David and Rashawn Paccarel at ATA headquarters provided editorial and technical support. If you learned anything new in today's podcast, I bet there's someone out there who would like to know it too. Don't be stingy. Tell them about the podcast. I've gotten to know so many great podcasts that way. I promise they'll thank you for it. And if you're not an ATA member, listen up. I've been a member for over 20 years. Joining ATA literally launched my freelance career, and I've never looked back. Nowadays, the demand for translators and interpreters is at an all-time high, but finding quality work isn't easy. ATA membership can make the difference. And ATA isn't just for translators and interpreters. Individuals, companies, and organizations can join. We have teachers and professors, hospital administrators, language company owners, technology developers, as well as language companies, universities, hospitals, and government agencies. If you'd like to know more, go to ATA's website, atanet.org. You can also check out past episodes of this podcast where we talk about the benefits of membership and what's currently happening in the association. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Talk to you again soon.